Hey everybody, it is Wintermute here, and I'm just going to bring up one issue in the rules that kind of I see pop up on some of the YouTube wars that I see going on, and it's popped up in my games a couple times, and it pops up whenever people talk about this particular unit, and that's Colonial Infantry. And I completely understand where the confusion is coming from when it comes to how they can be placed. And I'm going to show you exactly why that is. So, the issue boils down to where they can be built. Now, if you look on the national reference sheets for the four nations that can build colonial infantry by default, so that's Italy, UK, FEC, and ANZAC, they all say the same thing in their entry blurb, which I've got it copied here on my Italy build chart, and that is colonial infantry may build in land zones with a point value outside of home country. No factory is required. Now, reading that sums it up in a way that I think most people would understand how it works. The problem arises that there's another layer to that isn't put into that blurb, and it's actually in the core rules. And when you look at the Section 11 place units and collect income phase, do not require a factory for placement. Colonial infantry may be placed in land zones with a point value outside of the building nation's home country. The land zone must be originally owned, i.e., have that player's roundel on it. And you must have possessed the land zone since the beginning of the turn. That last sentence is pretty standard, so I wouldn't even include that because that's almost usually across the board. And if it's an exception, most of the times you run into it, then there's an explicit exception. But, just reading this, you will get the wrong impression of how that's supposed to work. And I know this pops up. And actually, I watched a video where I watched this happen. I go, oh, no, I don't think that's right. And I'm like, and I went and I looked in the rules, the core rules. And in the core rules, if you look under the colonial infantry entry, not this section, if you look in the colonial units entry, it says nations that can build colonial infantry basically build and place them per the rules on their national reference chart. Okay, so you go look at the national reference chart, and then you look at this, and here it's got this blurb that kind of summarizes how they work, and that's what people find, and that's what people go by. The problem is that's not the whole story. And you have this here, which clarifies it on another level. So that extra sentence should have been summarized in here as well. And I absolutely understand how this happens all the time. I've seen it in my games. I still see it happen. I actually, when I saw it, I was kind of like, man, that doesn't feel right. And I went and I double checked the entry for colonial units in the core rulebook. And I went, okay, it doesn't say it there. So I went and I checked these sheets. And this is my copy. I went and I actually, rechecked all four of those nation sheets, and they all still have this blurb here where it is it's summarizing it, but without that extra bit, which is kind of important. And then I'm like, man, was I really wrong? Was I thinking of version 2? Wait, I don't think they had colonial infantry. Man, where did I find that? So I just kind of forgot about it. Like, man, maybe I've been doing that wrong. Maybe they changed it at some point and I didn't realize. And then the next evening, I'm thinking about it. It kind of pops back into my head and I go, oh, wait a minute. And I go and I look in this section and there it is. And I'm like, okay, I knew that didn't sound right. So, I sent in a message regarding the video, and I talked with one of the players involved. I know some of the players who are involved, so I just sent him a quick, but hey, real small, mistake was made by player X. But I completely understand how it happens. This is the sort of thing that is probably going to just keep happening. Now, before anybody gets too indignant about this, I want to kind of point out how easy it is to make a mistake like this. As somebody who's tried their hand at writing rules various times, and is still trying his hand at it, it's you kind of, as soon as you sit down to make the comprehensive rule set, things get a lot harder because now, after you've kind of done that, and this should be very close to your final version, if you change something over here, then you have to go back through and you've got to make sure you catch every instance elsewhere in the rules that talks about that change so that you don't get any kind of confusion between the various points. And that is so easy to miss. Honestly, it's easy to forget to do in the first place. And even when you do realize it, you're like, oh yeah, I got to go back and did you catch all the points in the rules that do that? Well, no, probably not. And so proofreading is important, but it's never perfect. And it always helps if you can hand it off to somebody who isn't necessarily knee deep in the rules and isn't reading them with an assumption of what they know. They're reading them kind of fresh, and they can go, hold on, man, this doesn't actually make sense. And that's great if you can do that, but not everybody wants to sit down and just read a rule book for proofreading. That's not an easy thing. So, I know where it happens. I know how it happens. Now, on the other hand, if you are as a game designer, and I've talked about this in another video where I'll put the link below, if you say, well, I changed it here, but because I changed it here, everybody should automatically know that it's changed everywhere else. Well, if that was your attitude going into it as the guy who wrote the rules, that's on you. And don't be surprised if people are a little upset when they say, man, this shit don't make sense. Because it doesn't make sense because you didn't go through and change it all. Now, this is just, that extra sentence just needed to be put there. That's all it is. That one more sentence there would have clarified that, and that would have been that. But I understand why this particular topic keeps popping up in various games that I watch and play. So I'm just kind of making a quick video about it to put it out there as to how it keeps popping up, why it keeps popping up, and just to kind of clarify my understanding of how that's supposed to work. That's it. That's all the point of this video is, just to kind of cover a problematic area that I know exists. So for right now, this is Wintermute signing off.